being built at Kalpakkam, we are talking about 500 megawatts. That's about 10 tons of uranium you put in. It's about 20% is the enrichment of plutonium. So you talk about an enrichment of about 2 tons of plutonium. You put that in the reactor, and in 1 year later you ought to replace about 1 more ton because you have to take the fuel out to reprocess it. So that means I spend about 3 tons of plutonium, and for 50 years I will have 500 megawatts. Totally self-sustained. I'm not even going near thorium. And to say that this material, so what the problem in India is simply the following. It's going to be about 10 to 15 years before the fast breeder test reactor becomes certified and ready for electricity. And it's going to be 15 to 20 years before thorium gets, because thorium also we can work the same, uranium, thorium plus the plutonium, thorium gets converted into this, and so on this. So to tell India that stop all your activities, we will give this, I think it doesn't make sense. But what provides India is, if we go on this route with the United States, let us assume that we are able to have about 24 reactors, each one about 1,000 megawatts. We won't buy the French because it's 1,600 megawatts and the Americans may not like it. So let's say about 24, you are talking about 24,000 megawatts, and in 10 years, that's about 2,400 megawatts. The whole business proposition itself is very attractive. We are talking about 70 to 80 billion dollars. Not to mention the other $100 billion that comes out of the infrastructure. Our calculations show another interesting thing. For every 1% growth of electricity, the Indian GNP grows by 1%. And the infrastructure calculations suggest that we will be spending about 25% of the GNP on infrastructure. So you are talking about somewhere about $200 billion per year. India is going to be, what do you call it, morning in India when you start building the infrastructure of the country. And it is on this context, I think we should start looking into this. There are just 3 issues. George was saying that if all Indians put all these reactors or military, what will happen? If all of them is military, where is the question of collaboration? Where is the question of cooperation? We don't need it anymore then. And there is no cooperation. And the second is mentioned the fear that 233 is quite dangerous. 233 is such a gamma active material that nobody will make a bomb out of that. And also, I mean, I don't want to get into the technologies of bomb making, etc., etc., except to say that it's a nuisance. When you have the plutonium, you don't have to do this. Other is to argue saying that fission, we should not produce a fissile material. It is going to be in the interest of India to build power reactors. It's going to be interest of India to ensure that its citizens are on this one. The United States is actually at a crossroads. Are we going to reward a country that has every technology, possibly excepting enrichment technology, centrifuge enrichment technology, every other technology, whether it is a re-entry vehicles, whether it is a targeting, whether it is a solid booster? After all, the Indian solid booster is the 3rd largest in the world after the space shuttle and the Titan. And every one of these technologies, and it has guarded it. It has kept safely. It's a democratic society. It was not running a supermarket for any technology for other countries. And for all this, and suddenly the fear saying that what will Indians do? Indians have behaved till now impeccably in this matter. They will continue to. The question is, will United States for once come forward and say, okay, we will be partners on the development and proceed? Or will we say that we will continue to be worst of the friends, always complaining about each other? The decision to be made at both the countries. But if you are nervous about working with India, you ought to read the Indian newspapers to find what it is. They always remind me what happened in Tarapur. They tell me what happened to the cryogenic motors. Well, suddenly Soviet Union developed cold feet. They say, you really want to work with them? So, but I think gently, I think we ought to, both of us have to move. There are lots of opportunities. Whether we make it or drop it will depend very much on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Our next speaker is Teresita Schaefer. She is Director of the South Asia Program at the Center for Strategic International Studies, where she has been for 7 years. She came to CSIS after a 30-year career with the United States government in its foreign service.